All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Epic River webinar, 3 Ways to Prepare for Automatic PPP Forgiveness. I'm your host, Lindsay Satula of Epic River's marketing agency. We are going to kick off the webinar today by introducing our presenters, and then we'll discuss the potential forgiveness simplification that is currently being debated in Congress. There are some specific consequences for lenders depending on what direction Congress goes, so we'll dig into that. And finally, we'll present a solution to help you drastically streamline your PPP forgiveness process. So first, the intros. Alex Preston, our account executive at Epic River, is going to walk through the simplification on the table and potential consequences of the bill in Congress. And then Norm Woolworth, our client success manager, is going to run you through a quick demo of one option to streamline the loans you still have to process. I'll be monitoring the Q&A during this demo, so you can feel free to ask questions, and I will interrupt him to see if we can get you some answers. So, Alex, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Lindsay. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to kick off the webinar and just want to say how much we appreciate you taking time out of your Friday to review this with us. So as an account executive, I work with financial institutions to coordinate a variety of products, pro-sign online and patient lending being just a few. Recently, though, our efforts have been geared towards helping existing partners through the immense workload that the Paycheck Protection Program has created for banks and small businesses. So to add to the workload, there are still changes and proposals that are coming down from the SBA and making it very difficult to take a proactive action and leaving things very unclear. The most recent change being proposed being the 150K and below forgiveness. This has been our main topic of conversation, and we wanted to use this time to explain a few ways you can prepare regardless of the outcome. Lindsay, do you mind going back to that previous slide? So many of you are likely familiar with the slide and the numbers, but it's extremely important for us to understand the volume of loans financial institutions processed. And now we'll have to complete an application for forgiveness approval. It's pretty amazing when you think about the amount of lives that you guys have been able to touch and communities that you've been able to impact. And this volume of 4.9 million loans is daunting as you begin to understand the industry variables, business size variables, and even just the back and forth that you'll have to do to collect the documents needed. Even just 50 of these loans requires a significant amount of labor and due diligence. So for this reason, the forgiveness for 150K and below has been proposed. So this next slide kind of explains what the Senate Bill 4117 consists of and what would happen if it was to go through as is. So for possible loan forgiveness simplification, all PPP loans less than $150,000 would be automatically forgiven with a simple one-page form. That's a big breath for all of us, I think, as we look at those numbers and really the amount of workload that would relieve from our shoulders. The big piece, too, is that the lender would not be liable if the borrower's form contained any falsehoods. So removing this workload would be great for everybody involved. What does that look like, though, if this was removed? Is the remaining loans something that will still be an issue? How do we manage when we don't know what's going on? So the 150K, if loans were less than 150, you're forgiven, and then obviously the above would still remain. The likelihood for audits would go up exponentially. The dollars have already been allocated for the full amount. So you would expect that the amounts over 150K would likely be audited. The loans that are left as well are going to be your more complex loans with your larger businesses. So more documentation, more accounting that will come with this. So This next slide kind of breaks down what that looks like if this was to happen. So in the orange, that's the amount above the 150K. The blue is the amount under 150,000. So roughly about 84% falls in under that, or excuse me, 86% falls in under that 150K. Leaving about 650,000 loans still above that 150K mark. The amazing piece, though, is that out of that 650,000 loans, it equates to 72% of the total dollars that were given out, or 379 billion. So the point of this slide is, even if this was to go through, we are still dealing with an immense amount of work. So the last thing I'd like to discuss before we move on to the demo is the timeline. So without knowing what we're going to be dealing with 150,000 proposal, we need to look forward to what we do know. And really the only deadline that we have is that all applications need to be approved by December 31st. And the reason for that is the tax implications. Obviously, the income from those loans could create some issues for taxes for your bank. So giving yourself a hard cut of December 31st is extremely important. What we can do from there is start working our way out. So your application review would be about 60 days. And this is something that the rules don't clarify. There's been nothing from the CARES Act or any guidance from the SBA. But what the rule does clarify is the lender has 60 days following the date of application to determine what, if any, portion of the loan is eligible for forgiveness. The lender then must submit to the SBA for review. So giving yourself a full 60 days is going to be very important for the success, even if it's just the loans over 150,000. So a November, December window is what you'll want to give to your team. So an October 31st end date is something you should be looking at. So this will give you just a few months to be able to actually process those applications. Obviously, if the full amount of applications go through, this is a very small window to process hundreds of applications. Even if they were only to, let's say, forgive 50,000 and under, your timeline that you have for the back and forth to process applications is very small. Now, that leads you to developing your process. So right now should be the time that you're having conversations about how you are going to process these forgiveness applications. Getting it implemented, running it through with your executives teams, starting a slow trickle so that you can work out any hiccups or problems in your process should be occurring now. So that brings me to the last. So the 3 ways you can protect yourself and prepare for the PPP loan forgiveness. So in the next slide, set your timeline. Communicate with your team. What are the dates that are going to be your hard set dates? So that December 31st date should be your first concrete date, followed by the application submissions for the October 31st date. Develop a process for your loans over 150,000. If you think that the loans below 150K are going to be forgiven, start working on those 150K and above now. And in worst case scenario, have a solution ready if the loans are not forgiven. So this next piece, Norm will go over and review our module that we believe will actually
Norm, do you want to share your screen and get into the demo?
Yep, I'm pulling it up right now. Sorry about that. All right, can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right, well, also thanks everybody for joining. Really appreciate it. From what it seems like, a lot of you are already ProSign Online customers, but if there's any of you out there that are not, ProSign Online is a product of ours that has been used for about 15 years now, electronically signing and closing loan documents. It's offered through Finastra and their Laser Pro suite. So the module that I'll be showing you today for PPP forgiveness directly integrates with ProSign Online. So any of those of you who do use it, that makes the process much easier. For any of you who do not use ProSign Online, that is completely fine. It is just the engine that the module is built off of, and you'll have access to it for no additional cost outside of the module itself. We decided to take a kind of TurboTax style approach to developing this module. We felt that the complexity was enough that just putting a form in front of a borrower and expecting them to fill it out properly was just a bit too much to ask for many borrowers out there. So as you'll see as I move through, it's a much more question and answer based and prompt, and there's a logic that's built in behind the scenes that will either add fields or remove fields to make it as user friendly as possible. A couple other points before we start. This was developed in collaboration with Dorsey and Whitney. They're the law firm that advises the SBA. So all language and help text that you'll see throughout this demo has been reviewed and approved by Dorsey and Whitney. And if there are any additional updates or changes that are made over the coming weeks and months, we'll be working closely with them to making sure all of the updates are accurate. And one last thing that I want to point out before I get started is I think one of the biggest benefits of the ProSign integration and this module in general is the ability for it to be a real front to back management tool for the entire process. We don't just provide a module and create the application. We also give an ability to have a back and forth with the borrower for if you need to request any additional supporting documents. We also are going to have the ability to submit the applications directly to the SBA for you. They came out a couple weeks ago and said that they'll be using their own API for submissions instead of using eTran like they did for the initial application. That's good news for us as a software company, just because it means, again, we'll be able to do the submission for you, but also we'll be able to pull responses from the SBA as to whether the loan has been fully forgiven or partially forgiven, or if they need more information. If you have any questions throughout, feel free to type them into the chat window, and Lindsay will interrupt me so that I can answer them. So I'll go ahead and get started. If you look at my screen, this is the landing page that the borrower would initially be brought to. It would be customized specifically to your bank. So instead of saying ProSign Online Demo, it would have the name of your bank. It will also include the logo of your bank if we do have it. You will get your own unique URL to your bank. That's very useful, and just that means you can do whatever you want with it. You can embed it on your website. You can send it out in an email blast. You can send it out on paper and letters if you want. However your bank wants to do it, it will be unique to your bank. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. These first couple forms are pretty straightforward, just basic demographic information. You'll see these save and continue buttons throughout. We do autosave the information as the user is moving through. Being in software development for 15 years, we're aware that being able to click a save button gives the user a sense of confidence and comfort that their information is being saved. However, we will be auto-saving the whole time. This next form is where you fill out the signer's title. However, if you toggle this button over to no, you're able to fill out information of if there's going to be a different signer. So for example, if an accountant or a staff member is filling out the application, they would put their information up front. But if the actual owner of the business or the CEO is going to be signing it, you can drop that information in here. For the sake of the demo, I'm just going to say I'll also be the signer. So at this point, whoever created the application up top will receive an email with a link that allows them to access their application at any time. So there's no need to complete the session or complete the information in a single session. You have the ability to jump in and out as many times as possible and as many times as you want and pick up where you left off. Moving on to our next page, again, this is just pretty standard business information. Nothing too confusing. And a tax ID number. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so now we're a bit more into the meat of the application. As you'll see here, we include help text wherever possible to help guide the user through the process and explain what they're filling out. For example, if these first two, there's probably a lot of borrowers out there who are not aware that they have a separate loan number through the SBA and a separate loan number through your bank. So we try to make that as clear as possible. I'm going to make this one for 500,000 and a disbursement date of May 1st. So as I move through the forms here, you'll notice the logic that's built into the module that I was referencing before. A good example of that is the payroll schedule question. If I change this to weekly, that makes me eligible to use an alternate covered period. If the user is interested in using that, they can toggle this button over to yes. And again, we offer wherever possible these little help text windows to help explain what an alternate covered period is and why they might want to use it. Similarly here for our EIDL advanced question, if they did receive one, they'll toggle the button over to yes, and then these two other fields will appear. It seems like there's still some ambiguity exactly how the SBA is going to handle the EIDL advances, but we've been assured that if we just collect the amount and the application number, that should be plenty in terms of what they are going to require. And then here we just enter in the number of employees both before and after the application or during the time period. And lastly, if the loan was in excess of $2 million. So down here on this next form, this is our questionnaire to determine if the borrower is eligible to fill out the 3508 Easy form, or if they're required to fill out the full application. Obviously, we hope that as many are eligible for the easy as possible, but we do support both the full application and the easy application. For the sake of the demo today, I'm just going to move forward filling out the easy application. So good news, I do qualify for the easy. So next we move on to our payroll questions. These are pretty straightforward. Nothing too complicated. And then we move on to our compensation to owners table. If there were any owners that received compensation during this time, you would just select the plus button and include the owner's full name and whatever compensation that they received. This table does not have a limit to the number that you can fill out, and just each owner that you put in will just populate a new row on this table. And now we move on to our non-payroll questions. This is another good example of the logic that we have built into the background to make this process as user-friendly as possible. If I fill out $10,000 as mortgage interest payments here, as you'll see later in the demo, this will prompt the user to be to request the user to upload a mortgage statement as supporting evidence or supporting documentation. If we left this field as 0, we would not prompt the user to upload a mortgage statement.
Hey, Norm, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yep, for sure.
We have a question. How difficult is it for borrowers to locate the EIDL advance number? Elizabeth has had many customers state that it was just sent to them with minimal paperwork, and her guess is that they may not have saved it. Do you know the answer to that question?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously don't contain any of that information ourselves. Yeah, it's kind of one that's just up to whoever received it and if they kept those records. I can't answer exactly how they would get that number if they lost the record. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not exactly sure how they could get that information.
Cool, thanks.
I wish I had more answers. Unfortunately, the SBA doesn't give us a lot to work with. All right. Fill out some utility payments here. And we'll move on. We have our optional principles questions. I'm just going to skip those for the sake of the demo. All right, so now we're on to our just review worksheet. This is just a page where it compiles all the information that we've input so far and does some calculations. We do not allow the user to edit the information directly on this page, and that is just because of the calculations that are being made. If the user ever wants to go back and update or complete any information, they can navigate back to the prior pages up here at the top by clicking on these different tabs. And then once they navigate back to this summary page, that would we would then recalculate whatever they put in. So if that all looks good, we can go ahead and click Save and Continue, and that will bring us to our actual forgiveness calculations. As we can see down here at the bottom, this application is eligible for full forgiveness based off of the answers that were input. I know there's some other solutions out there that are expecting the user to do, or the borrower to do, the calculations outside of the system themselves. Our module does all the calculations for them. So there's no manual work required on the side of actually doing any math, which I think people appreciate. So this is the end of the data input portion. From this point, I'm going to move on to actually creating the documentation. And if that this next point should look pretty familiar to those of you who use ProSign Online currently. So again, this module was built on ProSign as kind of the engine behind it. If you don't use ProSign currently, that's completely fine. You'll still have access to this piece as well for no additional charge. So in ProSign, there's 2 ways to create your signature. You can either input your mobile number, and that will send a text to your phone in which you'll be able to create your signature on your directly on your smartphone screen. As you see, my phone number that I typed in at the beginning was automatically pulled through. However, if you don't want to use your phone and you just want to sign directly on the screen, you can do that as well just by clicking no thanks. So I'm going to create my signature and my initials. And we will move on to sign our documents. If you're used to seeing a review step in here through using ProSign currently, for this specific module, we're not required to have the review step just because we already did the review back on the worksheet page in the module. So when you move forward, you'll just be brought directly to the signing step as opposed to having that additional review step. So as you can see, this is our document. All of our information is populated appropriately. Checkboxes have been checked. We have our numbers and calculations down here on the right. So if it all looks good, we can go ahead and move through the application and sign our lives away on all the different dotted lines. And our final signature. So now that we're finished signing, we'll be brought to the screen where we're asked to upload supporting documentation. As I was alluding to before, these documents are prompted based on the responses to your answers. So for example, number 4 here, record of mortgage payment, you would not see this document requested if the borrower was leasing and did not put in any mortgage interest payments. We accept PDF files. We accept Excel files if they do their payroll in Excel. Also, especially for some smaller businesses that maybe do their bookkeeping by hand still, you're able to just take a picture. And then if you upload that picture, we will automatically convert that to a PDF file format. I'm not going to go through and upload all of our different files here. But yeah, this is pretty much the last step. Again, everything would be saved up to this point. So if you don't have some of these documents on hand at the moment, you can definitely, close down and log back in at a later time once you have those documents. At this point too, from the bank side, you would see these applications would filter into your ProSign just like any existing loan documents that you use for ProSign currently. For the sake of time, because I do think most of you all are ProSign Online customers, I'm not going to show the ProSign side because I think you all are familiar with that. However, we are more than happy to demo that side as well. Just reach out to us after this webinar, and I'm happy to set something up for you. So that's about it for the module. Are there any other questions in the chat, Lindsay?
I don't see any other questions in the chat. Does anyone, if anybody'd like to ask any questions about the demo, now's a great time. Otherwise, we'll certainly give you some contact information that you can use to get in touch with us afterwards. Okay. No other questions.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I'll pass it back over to Lindsay and Alex here to wrap things up.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So obviously, we'd love to tell you a little bit more about the Epic River PPP forgiveness solution. You can set up a meeting by reaching out to Drew Davis in our business development department at ddavis@epicriver.com. Once again, thank you guys so much for spending part of your morning with us. Happy Friday. And we hope to continue the conversation about how we can help you help your clients get the forgiveness that they need. Thanks, and we'll have a great rest of your day.